Lesson 1.8, Properties. So this lesson we talk about some properties that you have seen in the past, and then we're introducing some new ones. The properties that we are using apply to addition and multiplication. Some of them have a combination of both. So let's just look at the names of the properties and what they show, and then we'll have to identify some properties with problems in the examples. So the first property is the distributive property, and the distributive property shows that if you have a number like 5 being multiplied by a set of parentheses, so 5 times parenthesis 3 plus 4. Well, normally order of operations says you would do what's in parentheses first. Okay, distributive property is showing that that doesn't always have to happen. You could take 5 times 3 plus 5 times 4. You are distributing the number through the problem. Now, the reason why distributive property is there and you don't do order of operations and do what's inside the parentheses first is because in algebra, there's variables. So if you had a b plus c on the inside of a parentheses and you don't know what those are, you need to still be able to simplify that problem and not leave the multiplication. So it would be a times b plus a times c. When we get to the examples and the exercises, we'll show you more what that is. Have you guys seen distributive property before? Do you know? Nope, so that's a new one. Okay. All right, commutative property of addition and multiplication. I'm going to kind of do these two together. You should have seen commutative property before. It basically is just saying that you can add or multiply in either order and you get the same answer. So if you take 5 times 3, it's exactly the same as 3 times 5. You're going to get that same answer of 8 no matter what you do. And these properties work in using arithmetic, plain numbers, and it also works in algebra because you guys are going to be heading towards pre-algebra next year, algebra where everything's in terms of variables. It's also the same property. You can add in either order. Multiplication is the same thing. You can multiply in either order and you get the same answer. Can you subtract in either order and get the same answer? No. Can you divide in either order? No. So this only works for addition and multiplication. All right, the associative property. The associative property of addition and multiplication. It's where you have 3 values and you reassociate how you combine them together. And just because you reassociate them doesn't change their value. You can add a different set of 2 first, or multiply a different set of 2 first, as long as you're adding the same 3 numbers or multiplying the same 3 numbers. It doesn't matter which 2 you do first, you're still going to get the same outcome, and that's what this means. So if you're trying to add 2 plus 3 plus 4, if you add 2 plus 3 first and get 5, and then add 4, you're going to get 9. Well, over here on the right, if I add 3 plus 4 first, I get 7, and 2 plus 7 is also 9. It doesn't matter how you associate them. You can reassociate them and still get the same answer. It's called associative property, how you group them together. As long as it's the same 3 values on each side, whether it's addition or multiplication, it's still going to give you the same answer, and that is called associative property. So commutative and associative you should have definitely seen before. They should look a little familiar to you. The next 2, maybe not so much. So they're called identities. They're called identities. There is an additive identity and what's called a multiplicative identity. That's a big word, but the identity for multiplying. And what I say about the identities is when you use them, it doesn't change the identity of the number. So the additive identity, what can you add to something and not change its value? Brandon? 0. So that the additive identity is 0. All right? And then what can you multiply by that doesn't change the value of something? What can you multiply by that doesn't change the value of something? 1. So 1 is the multiplicative identity. Make sure you have this list close, because when I scroll down, we won't be able to see that, and we're going to have to identify these properties. Do you have any questions about those properties and what they are? All right, let's scroll down a little bit. I'm going to look at the first 2 examples before we head to the exercises. So the first one says, use distributive property to write 6 times the quantity 4 plus 3. That's how you say that when there's something in parentheses. 6 times the quantity 4 plus 3 as an equivalent expression, then evaluate. So right here, when you go to rewrite this, this is what you would do. They wrote 6 times 4 plus 6 times 3. So they, instead of adding what was in parentheses first, they distributed through 6 times 4 plus 6 times 3. Well, 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 3 is 18. And then combine those to get 42. That was showing distributive property. So we're going to do that. In fact, I'm going to skip down right now and look at exercise 1 to see if we can do that. It says 5 times the quantity, 7 plus 2. Does somebody want to help me rewrite using distributive property? Trent, what do you think?
You could do 5 plus 7.
No.
5 times
5 times 7. And then this sign tells what you do in the middle of the problem.
So that'd be 5 times 7 plus.
Plus.
2
So 5 times 7 plus. So we took 5 times 7.
plus 2.
Now we got to take, when you distribute it through, 5 times 2. You got to take the 5 times both of them. It's 5 times 7 plus 5 times 2. That's distributing. Okay, Trent, what's 5 times 7? 35. And what's 5 times 2? 10. So 35 plus 10? 45. All right, good. Somebody want to try 3? It's 2 times the quantity, 6 plus 7. Who wants to try this one? 2 times the quantity, 6 plus 7. Kyler. So first we're going to write 2 times 6 plus 2 times 7. You usually write that number in front of both of them. 2 times 6 plus 2 times 7. Okay, what's 2 times 6? 12. And then 2 times 7? 14. And what is 12 plus 14? 26. So we have done both things that it says. We have done rewriting using distributive property, and then we also evaluated. So there were 2 parts to that. All right, let's look at example 2. I want to come back up here now so we can see what they did. I'll go through this and then we're going to try some of our own at the bottom. It says, name the property shown by each statement. It says 5 times 4 and 4 times 5. Since it's multiplying in either order, that's what made it commutative property of multiplication. Multiplying in either order will get you the same answer. 12 plus 0 equals 12. That is identity property of addition. So it's the additive identity. And then finally, 7 plus the quantity of 6 plus 3 equals the quantity of 7 plus 6 plus 3. It's the same 3 numbers. You see that? 763, 763. They just shift around the parentheses. That's reassociating what you're going to add first. And that's called the associative property of addition. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the exercises, and it says evaluate each expression mentally and justify each step. Okay, if I could get my mouse to work, this would be super. Here we go. So we do the odd ones. Let's do number 5, okay? It says 7 times 3. What could we also do with 7 times 3? Michael?
3 times 7.
3 times 7. And what would that be?
21.
21. And when we do that in either order, what is that called? You can put it in either order. Look at, do you have your list at the top? Where you can multiply in either order. What is it? It's only got 2 numbers, and we're switching them around. Associative has 3 numbers. So in either order, yes, commutative property. So I'm going to go COMM prop, and we're going to say multiplication. Commutative property of multiplication. Okay, number 7. 6 times the quantity, 3 plus 2. What do you think we're going to do with that? What do you think we're going to do with that, Emma?
6 times
6 times 3
3 plus 6 times 2.
plus 6 times 2. Okay, which is, what's 6 times 3? 18 plus 6 times 2? 12. And what is that? 30. And what property did we just use? The number out in front, and we multiply it through. So this one is using the distributive property. Distributive property. Okay, number 9. 1 times 20. 1 times 20. 1 times 20. Irene? What's the value of 1 times 20? 20. And what property is that? When you multiply by 1, yeah, and I'm going to let you write this. Let's do multi-ID. That's what I'm going to let you write. The multi-ID. It's the multiplicative identity. Number 11, 0 plus 3. What is it when you take 0 plus 3? Brandon? 3. And what property is that?
Identify a property of addition.
Right, so we're going to call it the add ID. We're going to call it the add ID. All right, I'm going to skip over here to number 10. 9 times 5 in parentheses times 2. What would we do with that? Maybe to make it a little easier. What would we do with those 3 numbers? There's parentheses around 9 and 5. What could I do? Anybody got any ideas?
I would, but I already got to
Okay, anybody that didn't get a ticket yet? Freddie?
9 times 5 is
Nope, we're going to do something else to make the problem easier. What should we do? It's one of our properties. We have parentheses around, 5 times 2. You're exactly right. So we're going to go like this, 9 times and then 5 times 2. So 5 times 2 is how much, Freddie? 5 times 2. Only 2, not 3. 10. So what would 9 times 10 be then? 90. And that property we used is associative property. So we're going to say associative property of multiplication. associative property of multiplication.